Hey guys, Mickey Klein again, Scottsdale, Arizona. So I've had a few people texting me and saying, "Oh my gosh, you haven't told us anything at all about the stars lately. Remember, you're an astronomer." So I'm just going to jump in and make a few short videos today. I'm just winging it. So I'm going to share what I've been seeing and what I'm looking at in the stars as far as 2020, December 2020, all the way through today, because and maybe even into the future because as some of you may have already seen some of my work, I am a big fan of Melissa Red Pill the World and also Charlie Freak. And so I had taken their research and I had overlaid that on my research, and I had done a video with Scott McKay a year back now. And so I'll link those two below in case those of you who haven't seen them. But what I really do is I kind of walk through a journey in the stars, and I let you know that Trump basically dominated, and I mean dominated, as of all the way back since 2012, but more and more information is coming into that puzzle as it comes out and as it's disclosed to us on how they had already taken huge strides with the banking system and even all the way back in 2012. So anyway, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick back up where I left off. And like I said, I'm just winging this. This isn't like a perfect presentation for you guys today. I just want to give you an update because I've got a lot going on and I don't have time to do this like a full production thing. But let's start by sharing my screen here. And I'm going to go into Stellarium. And again, this is one of my favorite tools for looking at past, present, future. And right now what I've done is I've gone back in time to 2020. So this was the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. So remember on December 21st, 2020, this is when we really got our 2020 vision. So Saturn and Jupiter conjuncted. And I actually really feel strongly that that's what Melania's dress was all about, the dark to light, because do you remember it was like Biden's inauguration day and Melania was wearing this, this dress here. Let me pull it up. Okay, so yeah, here's the photograph. So Trump again in his red tie, which I believe represents one of the sashes of Job's daughters, the red sash. And so that's very much a powerful ascension, dissension symbol for him to be wearing that red tie. And I believe this was actually his inauguration day of his 19th. He's essentially, he's sworn in as the 19th president of the Republic, the restored Republic. But this is dark to light. So you can see this conjunction happening where the cube, the square, that's Saturn. And that is also the way that, okay, all things in the planets were good until they were made evil, right? So Saturn always represented our father time. It was the reason that we're here. It represents our history, our past, where we're going, and time. And it says in the end time prophecy that Satan would manipulate time and nature. And we don't really know what time it is because they took us off the Mayan calendar, which is, I think, what we're supposed to be on, because it's a 13-month calendar with an extra month named Sol in the summer. And that calendar is based on a 28-day cycle. So it's a feminine cycle. And a lot of prophets back in the day said that if we just went back on the Mayan calendar, we'd be right back in balance. Well, Saturn is a planet that harnesses energy that was overtaken by the Rothschilds. And the Rothschilds use the symbolism of the black cube. Think Mecca, actually. And in Mecca, that's another big part of the story that I'd like to add into or weave into the story of the stars. But I don't know if you know this, but they found the Ark of Gabriel in Mecca in, I believe it was early 2017. And then they moved it, and they faked this whole like big crane accident. But then it was told to us that Putin moved the Ark of Gabriel into Antarctica, and there was this huge explosion. And then just after, we saw the sign of the Son of Man. So I just want to point this out, and then I'll show you the sign of the Son of Man. But basically, you have this conjunction happening. You've got essentially a 2, 4, 6 point hexagon overtaking and covering the 4-point cube, right? And so it's from dark to light. And so you see that happening in the stars. And this is something 107 is very connected to this story. So when Jupiter overtook Saturn, which actually happens once every 20 years, but it happens on a triangle. So every time it happens at a different part in the zodiac. So think of the triangle moving forward in a rotation. But anyway, so this is a big conjunction. As soon as this happened, we started getting more and more comms, more and more 2020 vision. Then I'm going to start fast forwarding. Actually, let me show you the sign of the Son of Man. So remember, we talked about in my first video that it said in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, it said that a great wonder would appear in heavens. And this is how you know the end times is upon us, that a great wonder would appear in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet, and a crown of 12 stars above her head. And she's crying out in pain as she's about to give birth. Well, we saw this exact sign. You can see that she's clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet. There are 9 stars of Leo and 3 additional wandering planets, Mars, Mercury, and Venus, creating a crown above her head. And she's crying out in pain because Jupiter has just done a full retrograde in her womb and has come out. Now, if you watch my research and Melissa and Charlie Freak's research, you'll see that as soon as Jupiter had entered in the womb here on the Earth plane, that's when Trump sent 13 separate units on 13 no-fail missions to take out 13 royal families. Then when Jupiter came down in here, right at this base, at this first point in here, at station 1 of the retrograde, that's when Trump came out in front of his entire audience on Inauguration Day, saying he's going to bring power back to the people. All right. Then as Jupiter was gestating in the womb, he went on a world tour. He got every country to capitulate, including Saudi Arabia, the Vatican, the Jerusalem, the G7, and the summit. So he had done huge work well before Jupiter ever even came out of the womb. So once again, this right here is called the sign of the Son of Man, and it's referred to often in the Bible. And Jesus spoke on the steps of Mount Olive to his disciples, and he spoke about this end times. He spoke about what to look for. And in that, I'm going to read a quick verse from Matthew 25:31, where he starts to explain that when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all his angels with him will sit on his glorious throne, all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Now, this basically goes into the story of how God basically is going to favor those who do service to others versus those doing service to self. So it says, the king will say to those on his right. So those are the good guys. Think of right as being correct. And this is common in a lot of biblical scriptures. He moves to the right or the left. So think of Republican versus Democrat. I mean, just saying. So when you think of left in gematria is 43. Left is false, 43. Right equals the meaning of correct. Right, 62. Torah, 62. So Torah is the giving of the Torah, the giving of the 10 commandments. This is what Moses received on the top of Mount Sinai. He received the 10 commandments. So again, this is truth versus false. And so God in this moment in time in the end times is going to give people an option to make the right decision or to continue to walk in dishonor, right? So it says here, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you are blessed by the Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we? When did we do this for you, right? Like, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you as a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes or clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go in to visit you? And the king simply replies, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one, or at least of these brothers and sisters of mine you did for me. So he's basically saying, if you're doing service to others, you're doing service to me. Then he will say to those on his left. So I want you to think, as I read this to you guys, about the times today, right? In the times today, how many people were faced with decisions on what direction they wanted to go, right? They knew something was wrong, but they still made the decision. Okay, so it says, then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me. They will also answer, Lord, when did we see you go hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison? And did I not help you? And he will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. So they, of course, the Bible is very specific. I mean, I don't know that I'm interpreting it perfectly, but I can tell you there's definitely cause and effect in the Bible. It says, then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. So I've been saying this a lot. I do feel like we're being offered eternal life here when making the right decisions, but it gets harder and harder to make decisions and to choose not to acquiesce to what we know is wrong. So anytime you acquiesce, you give in to, or you walk in agreement with something you disagree with, like, for example, the masks, or if you acquiesce to what someone's telling you to do, even though you know it's wrong. So in 2021, it was actually I had tracked the end of the tribulation somewhere around, I think it was March 6th, 2021. And at this time, this is when I believe Trump took Air Force One, and a VP or an ex-president does not take Air Force One. Only the president takes the Air Force One. And he went and signed the final Nassar papers in Switzerland, which Switzerland would have been the official fall of the banking system. Okay, because that's where they were located. Everyone says keep in Switzerland. They always stayed neutral in Switzerland. That's because they didn't wage war on their own territory, because the elites were in control of Switzerland. So anyway, I do believe that because of his trip there, that did mark the end of their work. Now marks the beginning of our test, our trial, our tribulation. And so I want you to follow Saturn and I want you to follow Jupiter as they both go through retrogrades, because you're going to see Saturn getting tested in the house of Capricorn and in this triad of Capricorn. So I'm just going to fast forward here, and I want you to watch Saturn take this full retrograde in here. This was all through 2021 and then coming out into 2022. Okay, so this brings us up to the times. It just left that triad. What is this triad and why is it so important? And why Saturn versus Jupiter, right? So now I'm going to actually show you Jupiter. Jupiter does a very similar retrograde. I'm going back to that same point in time, that March 6th, 2021. So this, I think, was the end of the tribulation. Now watch Jupiter. Jupiter's going to do a full retrograde over the belly, the sacral chakra of the Aquarius, which is where we're heading into. We're heading into the Aquarius. So remember, it said that he would separate the goats from the sheep, and he would put the goats to his left. So I want you to look down as if you're God. You're putting goats to the left, you're putting the sheep to the right. You're separating. Now, I know we have a bad connotation of the term sheep, but truly a lot of these people are trying to be virtuous. They're trying to make the correct decision based on what they know and based on where they are. So even if they're asleep, they're still trying to make the right decision. Those who know they're making the wrong decision, those who are, like harming others, harming children, trafficking people over the border, making these horrible decisions, they are being judged. And remember, I believe the QFS has been in play for a very long time. I believe that they've been watching what we're doing for a very long time. So if you follow and track, come back here, let's track, sorry, I'm going to back all the way up here. So both of those planets, both of those energies were being drawn up. I believe that for Saturn, Saturn was being cleansed. So remember, the meaning of Saturn is a good meaning. It's father time. It's our history. We're getting our history back. But this triad, they tried to tell us that Jesus was a Capricorn, but it turns out he was born 9/11. So yeah, September 11th. So he actually was a Virgo. Now, I'm not completely convinced that there isn't a 13 constellation, that they haven't completely manipulated our astrology. So that's why I focus more on the astronomy, which is the study of stars and the effect that they have on the earth plane, not so much the astrology and your personal relationship with the stars. But I still pointed out here because they told everyone that the only way to heaven was through Jesus and through this triad. Well, if you go deep into the meaning of some of these stars, this star here on the top, this Dabi star, actually means slaughter. And a lot of this triad represents a judgment. And you've heard of the concept of a wolf in sheep clothing. Well, this is almost like a goat in fish clothing. Capricorn's half goat, half fish. And you know that they use the demonic symbolism of the goat all throughout, the DNC logo and several tarot cards and so on. In fact, the tarot card of the goat is Moloch. So the fish was the fisherman of man. And in fact, there's a lot of ancient scripture and meaning behind the fish that I won't get into at this time. But the fish was supposed to mean something of the Pisces age, the holy. And so think of all of the priests and the ministers that were acting as Jesus, but were actually declaring allegiance to a much darker energy. So I feel that this was a time where they were being judged, they were being captured, they were allowed to make a choice and to either come over to those who are going to do service to others or stay in their service to self and continue on that path. So this has been a long judgment. This has been a long, drawn out judgment. I think people have had a real hard time with the period of time at which it took. I mean, here it brings us all the way into February 2022. That was a big retrograde for both of these planets. Now, remember, Jupiter is the king planet. So it is the dominion, and the awareness of dominion. So this king planet is, and this is something where, Trump drew a lot of his power. Remember, he registered Jupiter Golf Club in September 2012, exactly 5 years minus 5 days to the delta of that sign of the Son of Man that we saw, that I showed you a second ago, which we saw on September 23rd, 2017. So remember, I took this date and went back in time 3.5 years and forward in time 3.5 years. For those of you who didn't see my first video. So Jupiter is now going to cross over this threshold, and it does it on 2/22/2022, which is really an important date here. I'm trying to get to that quick. This was a massive date because you have a 2-year delta. 2/22/2022 is an exact 2-year delta of when we got a new sun based on Judson White's research. And that new sun, which appeared on 2/22/2020, all twos, follow the twos, that happened right over the exact same location, the sacral chakra of Aquarius, right between the two stars here. So this is a big day. Jupiter's crossing over the mixing of the waters. The age of Aquarius has begun. Now it's a matter of letting go of the old illusion and allowing for the new energies to come in. And so assumptions start to fall by the wayside. You have a higher understanding. Therefore, you have a new opportunity to walk in the path of righteousness versus being drawn into the path of darkness, right? So we become more and more guided by the light, guided by the sun, SON, SUN. They have the same meaning and they have the same thoughts. We are entering into a Christ consciousness. The work is done. The people have been given a choice. And in order to walk in honor, you always have to give a choice, right? Based on what you know. Once you know, now you can make a better choice. So anyway, this was just a massive date here. I could go on and on about that date, but I really want to fast forward into now. But I just also want to say this was the moment where I feel like the matrix started opening up for us. It's going to start loosening up. A lot of the power systems are going to start crumbling because there are technologies entering in. There's going to be water and funding for humanitarian efforts coming in. There's a lot of shift happening right now behind the scenes, I believe, because of that crossover. That was a big crossover, almost like crossing the Red Sea. And I was getting a lot of comms all over the place for the Red Sea moment, if you will. And like I said, that's a fascinating story. Moses' story on basically breaking the spell casting. Because remember, these people were pharaohs at the time, and they were spell casting over the Israelites. And they had them believing that they were, the royalty, that they were magic, that they could do magic. And really what they were doing is they were snake charming. They weren't just snake charming, they were snake charming the people. So when Moses went in and broke the spell casting in the house of the Pharaoh, 20% of the people left with him. And of course, we know there was more drama involved, and the lamb's blood on the door and the Passover and all that. But it's a choice now, right? Now you can choose for a better life and choose for a new kingdom of heaven on earth. But it's a choice. Everything in this realm is a choice. It's a choice. It's a free will realm. And I'm going to do another follow-up video right after this of how I'm starting to really interpret and understand the relationship between Orion and the Taurus, because we're really being placed in a situation where we're given tremendous responsibility to take back what was always rightfully ours within the kingdom of God, and to enter back into his law of nature, which was always the driving force between all things. The devil can only trick and manipulate and use mind control techniques, but they have to tell you the truth, because in order for them to walk in honor and to not bear too much karmic load, they have to tell you the truth. They have to use it in the naming conventions. They play us like fools. Okay, but we're fools no more, because now we have the Son. We are entering into a Christ consciousness, and we can always ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? What would a higher divine being choose to do in this situation, right? So, okay, so then we enter into right about now. I'm going to fast forward slowly so you can see all these planets coming into alignment here. So now what we have is, I'm going to keep going forward. We have this 4-planet alignment happening where there's Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Saturn, actually 5 planets. But a lot of people are looking in the sky at these 4 planets. So the Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Saturn is very interesting. Let me get to. So in this alignment, it's rare. This also only happens once every 1,000 years. And it's basically the 4 planets and the moon, plus a ton of meteor showers and a fiery, intense, and powerful solar storms, means a major energy shift and cosmic reset. So, of course, we're all experiencing a ton of assumption symptoms, a lot of disorientation, because we're realizing that we've been so lied to. We're realizing that the illusion of the matrix we lived in is sort of crumbling in front of us. We're starting to make new assumptions, and there's a severe divine intervention happening. There's also these numbers that might pop up for you: 1111, 222, 333, or even the 77, which is Christ 77. It's also disciple 77. So there's a lot of positive change and blessings if we make an opening for those blessings. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover for today. Oh, okay. I'm going to take you guys into the future. I don't think you're going to love what I'm saying, but I want to be clear. We now all have a choice of experience. So you're making your own reality now. If you are an innovator, this is an exciting time for you. If you are a visionary, this is amazing, because now you can finally start to explore the visions and be the visionary that you're always meant to be. You're going to start seeing that there is going to be an influx of money for those who are prepared for this moment to start to build anew. As the 7 mountains of influences fall and the 7 rise, you get to take part in the rise. right? Whereas for some others that are still stuck in the older patterns of Saturn, it's going to take a lot more time for them to come into the new realm. And that's really okay. Again, this is a free will realm. We have to trust that they'll come when they're ready. But so I want to say to the futurists, the future is now. You crossed the threshold. You know, the pyramid is literally shifting into the Christ consciousness, or the highest self. We're now getting our command from high command, as in God, or, you know, your angels, or your, you know, the Holy Spirit, or from Jesus and the feminine divine. And so this is a beautiful transition if we allow it to be, right? If we make an opening for the new and we receive that, it's going to be a beautiful, wonderful transition. For others that are resisting it, it's going to take some time. And I know we'd all like a quick fix. We'd all just like to snap everyone out of it. But really, I don't see that happening. I actually see Saturn doing 2 full retrogrades. It's got to finish up what it's doing in Capricorn, and then it needs to go through a full retrograde again over the Aquarius. And it's not going to be until Saturn fully crosses the waters of the Aquarius before it's ready to take on an entirely new energy. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we went back to the Mayan calendar, but that's 2024. So, you know, I'm not saying that you in your reality have to wait till 2024 for others to experience it, but you do need to think about this. You need to think of it as if you're setting up a new kingdom of heaven, because you're the first wave of the rapture. And I'm talking to my followers, right? Because you guys are well in tune with what's going on. And some of the other people, again, it's free will. They're going to come on their own terms. But I believe that by around 2024, probably April 2024, people are all going to be ready to embrace everything that is set up in the new kingdom of heaven. And it will be much easier for them to make that transition because they don't actually have to manifest it. They can just bear witness to it. And it will be so much better than the way they were living, that I think they will be much more agreeable to the new terms, if you will, of the way that God has set up his kingdom. I'm also just going to share one more meme with you guys. I really like this one. It says, there are 144,000 souls in the Christ vibration. That's you guys. I want you to realize that if you're tuning into me, you're tuning into a new frequency. They hold the electromagnetic blueprint for our planet. Our destiny is heaven on earth. The operating system is love. The 144K are the spiritual elders and the spiritual leadership. This group must ascend, raise their consciousness first, and then take their chosen place in society through quantum entanglement and law of attraction. And I'm going to add one in here, law of agreement. The rest of the earth's inhabitants will follow. Anyway, you guys, I so appreciate you all, and I really hope that you look forward to the creation of this new reality, the mixing of the waters, and the new technologies that are going to be made available to us. And I really encourage you to continue to join us as we go into the path of creation and unknown and co-creation. And we are all meant to be our creative selves. We're meant to be free in this realm. We're meant to explore. We're meant to share and guide and support one another. We're meant to come into our dominion, the dominion of land, air, water. We are meant to oversee more as protectors versus those that might come and manipulate God's land. We're coming into nature. We're coming into nature's law and frequency and balance and harmony. And so anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I just wanted to give you, like I said, kind of an update of what I see in the stars. So we'll talk again very soon. I do have another video I'm going to follow up with. All right, y'all, talk soon. Bye.